Hey guys, for this service, we're going to be doing 2 steps. We're going to be refreshing her balayage and then throwing some dark back in there to give her some more dimension. So before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. You guys can follow me over on Instagram at Christy@thecottage. Hey guys, so the client I'm doing today is actually kind of exciting. She has watched me on YouTube, and I guess she was traveling from out of state and she messaged me to come get her hair done. So that's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited about that. So the service that we're doing today is kind of like a balayage retouch, but we're also going to be toning down her hair a little bit. So apparently the last few times that she's gotten her hair done, they've just done a little bit too much, and she wants to add some dimension back into her hair. So even though she's saying that she wants a balayage, I feel like we're gonna be doing like a minimal lightening work. I don't feel like we have to go in there heavy-handed. Honestly, like, you guys have probably seen my videos where we just do like a really simple foliage balayage retouch, where we just pack in like under maybe 15 foils, just a few around the hairline, maybe 3 on the sides and a couple in the back, and call it good. She already has a lot of blonde through the end, so we don't need to lighten that up. And she wants to have a little bit more bold of a money piece, but I told her that the picture that she showed me is kind of bright all the way up to the forehead, and I wouldn't really recommend that, because she said like where she's from, there's not really anywhere where she could go to get it redone. So I told her like maybe we'll stagger some foils. That way it's kind of softer at the root, but then gets a little bit more bold like the further down in this area that we go. That way she has that brightness that she's kind of liking. So that's kind of what our goal is today. We're going to start off with a little bit of a snip. I'm kind of a loser. So the product that we're going to be, I was uploading a YouTube video this morning and I didn't have time to go to the beauty supply store, and I realized how out I am of developer. I have 7 volume, which honestly is fine. That still gets really good lift. I just might have to let it sit a little bit longer, or I could add some 20 of some matrix stuff that I have, but I think just the Blonde Me 7 volume is going to be fine since she doesn't want to go too late. So I'm just going to be using my Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 7 volume and Olaplex to start our service off. So we're using 7 volume, but the truth is, guys, every time I go to the beauty supply store, they're out of product. I don't know if you guys are having the same problems, but Schwarzkopf has been very limited on 20 volume. So next time I go, I swear I need to get like 10 bottles. Schwarzkopf, if you ever are listening to this, hit me up. I need some product. So that was my clients before, and take a look at the section before I start foiling her hair right there. I left a little bit of a larger section. Normally I go directly right on the hairline, but because we kind of talked about the fact that she's not going to be able to go right away or have somebody that she's going to be comfortable going to when she goes back home, I told her I probably wouldn't do anything that's going to have a lot of like high maintenance, a lot of grow out or anything. So I probably went about almost a full inch off of her hairline for when I throw my foils in. So she'll still kind of have those natural highlights, but they're going to be set back a little bit further. So when she pulls her hair back, they're going to kind of show through still, but it's not going to be super bright directly on her hairline, but she's still going to have some really subtle brightness that kind of falls underneath the hair. So for that reason, that's why I'm going a little bit further back than what I normally do directly on the hairline. For anybody else that has clients that don't want to come in so often, I also think this is a good way to still incorporate those highlights around the hairline, but in a way where they're not gonna grow out super harsh or feel like they have to come in like 2 months or whatever. They'll really be able to go a little bit longer in between without feeling like they have any grow out or anything like that. And sometimes these highlights around the face are the first thing that makes somebody feel like they need to come in. You can do balayage and do a root shadow and all of that stuff, but sometimes when you have it a little bit too close on the hairline and it starts growing out when they pull their hair back, or the money piece or whatever, sometimes that is what makes them feel like they need to get their hair done. So being able to give clients options with maybe setting them back a little bit further, or whatever, like sometimes that makes a difference in a client being happy and feeling like, okay, I don't have to come in like every 3 months or 2 months or whatever. They can comfortably go 6 months without feeling the rush to come back in. For her money piece that we're going to get into right now, I'm taking this section and I'm not going to go directly on her hairline again. We're setting it back a little bit further, where we're going to up almost all the way to her scalp, because we do want it to be a little bit brighter, but again, not have to worry about grow out. So I'm going to kind of go right in between like this money piece section, not directly on her hairline, back a little bit. I'm going to back comb it. And then that's going to give her that brightness, but we're going to kind of sandwich this foil that we're doing. So the hair underneath this, which is the hair that's directly on the hairline, that's going to kind of minimize her grow as she pulls her hair back. And then this next section that we're going to take is going to fall on top of it. So that way when her hair is laying down, she still has some hair kind of falling on top of that brighter piece. So that's also going to kind of help minimize the look of grow out when her hair is styled and curled or laying down or whatever. So this section right here is what's going to fall on top of that. So that brightness is going to be underneath this top section, and then it's also going to be on top of this underneath hair that falls directly on her hairline, which will kind of minimize it when she pulls her hair back. So either way she styles her hair, whether it's down or pulling her hair back, that highlighted spot is going to be kind of sandwiched in between that hair. So she's going to have that brightness, but it's going to be kind of masked as it grows out a little bit by the hair that's laying underneath and on top of it. And I hope that makes sense. So that first little weave that we did was kind of directly back combed, weaved, and almost right up to the root. These next few foils are going to kind of stagger down a little bit, like maybe an inch from the first one that we did, and then this last one that we're doing, we're going to drop it down a little bit further, more through like the midsection to the ends. So that's going to kind of create more of a blend where it gets a little bit really soft and subtle in the root area, and then as it goes through the ends of her hair, it starts getting a little bit brighter. And that's going to help her not have to feel like she has any grow out and can go a little bit longer in between services. So we're going to go directly off of where she parts her hair, and we're going to kind of zigzag it and weave, and that's going to help her again not feel like she has a lot of brightness directly on top of her hair, but everything is going to kind of fall underneath, which again is going to help her feel like she doesn't have a lot of grow out or the need to come in anytime soon. And I kind of am doing it kind of diagonally back off of her part, so the hair is a little bit higher up right where she parts her hair at the front of the face, but then it's going to kind of drop down towards the back area, and that's going to help it have more of a natural soft blend where it's kind of darker in the crown area and brighter towards the face. And if you guys are taking count of how many times I'm saying kind of, then please leave it in the section below, because sometimes I know that when I'm explaining things, I repeat myself often. So I'm aware of it as I'm talking right now, and it's giving me anxiety, but I just want to let you know that I know, okay? I know. Okay, I went back and I took count because I know somebody, some smart ass is going to come up in the comments and be like, God, will this girl ever shut up? Stop saying the words kind of, okay? So I want to let you know that I already know that it's annoying. I know that it's annoying, okay? So you don't need to tell me to shut up. I already know. Anyways, guys, so I really was thinking that this service is a really good example of how balayage can create warmth in the transition area, because the end result of this service has some warmth in the root area, and that's because we used 7 volume versus 20 volume. Even though the lift was still good, the reason why I always use like 20 volume and sometimes we'll go through and reapply with 30 volume if I have to, is if somebody wants some really light blonde, they don't want any warmth at all. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that balayage creates warm tones. And so especially like when you're kind of in the I'm really trying not to, but it's just so hard when you're in the back comb area and you're painting and feathering up into the roots. You're not applying heavy saturation in that area because you're trying to be really like delicate and gentle, and you're trying to get a really good blend. So you're trying to feather really softly. And so because you're not getting heavy saturation, you're not able to get as good of lift in that area right there. So that's why some people don't understand that balayage creates a lot of warmth, which is why I like to insulate my foils, because I feel like I don't want people to have too much warmth. But since we're only using 7 volume, you'll be able to see at the end, just in the root area, that there is a little bit of warmth still. Not much, but just a little bit. So I think that this is a good video for that, because this is a little bit more natural. It's a little bit more soft and subtle. It still was really, really pretty in the end, but I think this is perfect to just show kind of what somebody wants if they don't want it to be like a high maintenance hair. They want it to be a little bit more soft and subtle and be able to go a little bit longer in between. I think it's realistic to say if you want balayage and if you want it to be a little bit more low maintenance, then expect there to be some more warmth in the hair. So I just wanted to point that out and say all that, especially since she already has a lot of warmth in her hair right now. We're going to try to tone it down later on in the service, but I just wanted to explain that because I know at the very end I won't have the time to like go over all of that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to talk about that right now, that you know, in that transition area, I think clients have a hard time with sometimes being like, why is it warm right here? And that's just kind of how balayage is. It just creates a lot of warmth. So that's why I never do open air balayage. And I know that some people get great results, but that's just, I haven't done it enough to want to, like, I get good results this way. So that's why I never do open air. But anyways, I just wanted to say that, and we'll just continue with the service. So we're just going to finish up adding these foils in. I'm really only doing maybe like my typical partial placement, which is maybe like 3 or 4 on the sides and a few in the back. And that's just kind of, that's just to, I'm trying really hard. That's just to brighten up slightly in the root area, but not add too much warmth, just enough to like give her that brighter area back up in the crown area. Now I feel like I'm rambling because I'm so concentrating on not saying kind of that it's like throwing me off of my train of thought. But I don't want to start over because I've already like, this is just a shit show at this point. Anyways, I'm just going to continue on. So I'm going to finish foiling these last few sections here, and I'm just going to put in maybe like 2 or 3 in this back area. And I'm trying to be really cautious of how I'm back combing the hair and my sections that I'm grabbing, because do you ever go through and when you paint like the very tips of the hair and you're just kind of grabbing all this hair from every different place, but then you want to go back through and add some dark dimension in there, and it's kind of it's hard to, because it's hard to get underneath the hair and work your way between the foils to add that dimension back, because you grab too much hair from so many different areas to do the ends. So I'm being really careful. You'll see when I go through and paint through the ends, I'm being very careful the hair that I'm grabbing to brighten up through the ends a little bit. That's because I want to make sure that when I go back through to add that dimension back, I'm able to just kind of pick through the hair nice and easily and lift through the foils a little bit better instead of disrupting the work that I've already created. But anyways, I'm just going to end this right there because I'm just, whatever. All right, so those are all of the foils that we're gonna throw in the root of her hair to refreshen up the blonde. And now we're gonna go through and start painting through the ends of her hair. She said that she doesn't want to be all over bright, but she does want to brighten up some of the ends a little bit more. So we're going to go through and I'm just gonna pick and choose areas that I want to brighten up. I know already because I'm doing the hairline and the money piece that area is going to be really bright right on her face. So I'm taking this section that's kind of, I'm really trying, guys. That's a little bit off of the hairline, and I'm just gonna paint through the ends. So that way she's gonna have some of the brightness on her face through the ends, a little bit more of the color that she came in with, and then directly behind that she's gonna have a little bit more brightness. So you're gonna see me kind of go through and just pick and choose areas where I'm trying to stagger the brightness here and there, but not overdo it, because we're going to go back through and add that dimension. If you guys are still hanging on at this point, then I appreciate you, and you are the real MVPs of who I love, of my subscribers, because I can't tell you honestly if I would have clicked off or not at this point, because anyways, we'll just continue on with the service, but I just want to say thanks for hanging on if you're still around. And that's that. All right, so in between these foils, I'm leaving those out. I'm not painting through the ends because I'm leaving those for dimension, and also to preserve some of the color that she already has in her hair. I feel like that'll be good because I don't want to have like too light of a color and then we're adding dark and then having too dark of a color and not having that mid-tone. I feel like having that mid-tone left behind brings a little bit more balance to the color, where everything blends a little bit better and it looks a little bit more natural, versus having a really, really light blonde and then a really dark color. I think when people want something more natural and low maintenance, having those natural tones in there and a little bit more warmth in the hair is nicer. So, but I did want to say, if somebody was going to go for really blonde and a lot more blonde all over, or like a brighter blonde, then I probably would be painting those areas that I just pinned up. All right, so I'm just going to finish painting through some of these ends and let the video play. When you're adding brightness back in the hair, or depth even, make sure that you're placing the hair where it's going to naturally fall. Comb through it so that way it lays exactly how it's going to fall when the hair is down. I'm combing through it and I'm just picking up pieces here and there, and I want to make sure that everything falls and has balance. You don't want to just grab hair, because since we've been moving the hair around and we have the foils in there, hair might not be laying where it's naturally gonna fall from everything kind of stuffed in there in between and back combing and whatever. So comb through the hair, just make sure you're seeing where it's gonna fall naturally, and then go through and pick up your section and go from there, because what you don't want to happen is just to grab any random piece of hair and not pay attention to where it's actually going to fall. And then now when everything's said and done, you have a lot of blonde concentrated in one area, or all on top, or not underneath, or whatever. It's not spread out enough. So just make sure you're creating a nice even balance. All right, so this is all we're doing for adding some brightness back in the hair, and now we're gonna go talk about adding the depth.
Okay, so I just got done like doing the balayage part of the service, and I went through and I lined up some of the ends of the hair, not too much, because she said she didn't want it to be too blonde or overly light. She just wanted to brighten up some of those pieces. So we're gonna go through right now and we're gonna add some more dimension back into her hair. So I'm going to use, because she's probably naturally like a level 4, I'm gonna use Agora Vibrance, because I think it covers really nicely. It's not translucent, and I feel like their ashier tones are a nice true ash. So I'm gonna use 521 because she already has a lot of warmth in there, so it will just soften it a little bit without grabbing too cool.
All right, so I applied this and let it sit for probably roughly maybe 20 minutes after the application was done. Here again is her hair from just adding the brightness back in, and now we're gonna go through and add the dimension. And I just wanna check the foils before and see if we need to reapply or anything, and it looks like it's doing pretty good. So there might be a few spots where we go back and reapply some of the lightener, just to get it to brighten up a little bit more. I'm gonna pull apart some of the foils and lift them up, and some areas I'm gonna add the dimension back in there, and then I'm gonna go flip back and forth on either side. And I think it's easier to do it that way, because if you go through and just do one side first and then go back and do the other side of the head, it's hard to remember exactly what you left out, what you foiled, where did you add the dimension or whatever. So I think it's better to start on one side, flip back over to the other side of the head, and grab the hair on the same spot on the opposite side. That way, again, you're making sure that you have nice balance within the hair, and you're grabbing equal amounts of hair that you're going to darken up, because you don't want to have one side of the hair look too much darker than the other side. So now we're going to flip back and forth and do the same thing. I also don't always use foils when I'm adding dimension back in the hair, but I do think it's a good idea, because if you ever have like dark color transfer onto the lighter hair, or the other hair this is a good way to prevent that from happening. If the hair's already been like combed, like washed and combed out or whatever, and I just want to paint a few panels of dark, then I might just do that like open air and just kind of swipe some of the dark back on the hair. But because we're moving the hair around so much and there's so much going on, I think it's just better to add the dimension in a foil, because then you know that you're not gonna create a huge mess and get a whole bunch of color transfer where you don't want it. So I'm gonna go through and I'm just taking larger sections of depth in here and painting it through the ends and kind of blending it up into the roots. And so this is gonna give her a lot of dimension that she wants, like those pops of darker tones that's in there, but she's still gonna have a lot of this other tone that she came in with, and then those brighter pieces that we're doing. So we're just gonna go through and kind of lift through the hair, make sure we're applying it evenly everywhere and not overdoing it, because we don't want to take away from all of the other tones that we're creating. We just want to add a little bit of dimension here and there. So we're just going to go through and apply this color kind of through the rest of her head. Remember to be extra cautious when you're adding that depth back around the face, because she's had a lot of this kind of lighter tone for so long, and it's so much that when people say that they want to add dimension, that makes us feel like, oh, they want to go darker. But the reality is they just kind of want to break it up a little bit more. So be really cautious to not overdo it when you get towards the front of the face, because sometimes their eye is going to go to that dark, and if it's overdone, they're going to think that they're way too dark everywhere. So I'm really just going to go through and add a few foils of this color, and then I'm also going to weave out some of that other tone that we're going to leave behind, just to make sure that she doesn't have too much dark in there. She's still going to have a lot of the color that she came in with and a lot of that brightness, but I think it's just really important to say around the front of the face to make sure that you're not overdoing it. All right, so here is the whole service that we've done, her full application of both the light and darker tones. And I'm just going through and making sure that wherever the hair falls, that she has an even amount of that color that she came in with still existing. So we're just going to pull the foils out, and you can see the lift that we got, which is pretty good. But you'll notice when we rinse her hair that it's still pretty warm, not overly blonde since she doesn't want to be too bright, but we did get a nice lift, and there's still a little bit more of a natural warmth still left to the hair.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through and tone for her lightest blonde, and she was kind of saying she wants it to be like a mushroom tone, but I feel like the problem with that is because we're kind of leaving out the warmer tone that she came in with. So if we do like a cooler tone, but she has those caramely tones, then it might be too conflicting of tones. So I'm gonna try to do like a nude, like a beige, like not too warm, but not necessarily too cool, just kind of in the middle. Slightly cooler than a natural, and you know what I mean? Just not too cool and ashy. So I think I'm gonna use a level 9 just to make sure it doesn't deposit too dark. So I have my two naturals, level 9 and natural level 8. And then I'm really just gonna go through a little bit with the 721 to cool it down a little bit so that it's not too warm and too caramely, because she said she really likes the mushroom color. So I think adding that cooler tone in there will just soften it down a little bit and blend it nicely without going like too ashy, too gray, whatever.
All right, so before we finished her color and styling and everything, I wanted to make sure she was happy with the warmth that was in her hair, especially kind of in that transition area when you're feathering up into the back comb area at the with the balayage in the root area. And so she said she was happy with it. It was fine. I brought her up, made her double check that if it was too warm we could tone it down, but she was happy with it because she thought everything blended really nicely. So here's her before again, and here's her after, and you'll be able to see kind of that warmer transition area that I'm talking about, kind of right up in the roots. So it's a little bit warm, but it's not too much. I think having that 7-1 really kind of toned it down, and everything blends really pretty. She was happy with the dimension that we added, really happy with her hair. And this service total cost was like $375, and I think it took like three and a half hours. So thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.